Welcome to this episode of our program Arab Affairs. As usual, we will be discussing an Arab important file. Today we'll be speaking about the latest developments in the Libyan file in light of the latest visit of the Libyan new Prime Minister Abdel Hamid Dbeibeh and his meeting with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, where they discussed a number of issues regarding the Libyan file. The President has already expressed Egypt's support for Libya, for its sovereignty, for its security and stability, and support for the Libyan people in this upcoming phase. Also, the Libyan Prime Minister has expressed his willingness and keenness for developing cooperation between Egypt and Libya in terms of raising it into a quantum change or a quantum leap towards a partnership relations. We'll be speaking about the latest developments in the Libyan file in light of this visit and in light of the election of a new presidential council and new government in Libya. Before we start with our discussion, let's first have a quick look on the Arab news that took place during this week, and we'll come back for more discussion.
Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry retweeted on Monday Egypt's constant position on the Palestinian cause and its support for the Palestinian people's legitimate rights, including the establishment of its independent state on the 4th of June 1967 borders. He pointed that any settlement for the Palestinian-Israeli conflict should be based on the two-state solution and in line with relevant international resolutions. This came during phone talks between Shoukry and the United Nations envoy for the Middle East peace process. During the phone call, Shoukry pointed to Egyptian efforts to create an atmosphere conducive to the resumption of the Palestinian-Israeli peace talks. For his part, the UN envoy expressed hope to coordinate efforts with Cairo to push the peace process forward. Egypt paid condolences and expressed solidarity for Iraq's government and families of the victims of the terrorist attack in Erbil. The Foreign Ministry wished quick recovery for the injured, expressing Egypt's full support to Iraq in its decisions aimed at maintaining its security and stability. Meanwhile, Arab League chief Dr. Ahmed Abul-Gheit condemned the attack as a dangerous assault on Iraq's sovereignty, which undermines the security and stability in the Kurdistan region. Abul-Gheit stressed the significance of overcoming current disputes in Erbil and Baghdad in a bid to unify efforts to face common challenges and combat trials aimed at undermining Iraq's security and stability. On Monday, a rocket attack on U.S.-led forces in northern Iraq killed a civilian contractor and injured a U.S. service member in the deadliest such attack in almost a year. Israeli missile strikes against several targets near Syria's capital Damascus killed at least 9 militia fighters early Monday. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said the militia fighters were killed in Israeli strikes targeting arms depots, including missile stores around Damascus. Syria's state media also reported the strikes, but said that the air defenses had intercepted most of the missiles. Since the outbreak of the unrest in Syria in 2011, Israel has routinely carried out raids in the country, mostly targeting Iranian forces and Lebanese Hezbollah fighters, as well as government troops. A Lebanese judicial source said on Thursday that Cassation Court had removed the judge leading a probe into Beirut's massive blast last August, in line with the request from two former ministers he had charged. The source said that the court has decided to transfer the investigation from Judge Fehdi Sawan to another judge who has not been named yet. The August 4th blast that killed more than 200 people and ravaged large parts of the capital was caused by the detonation of hundreds of tons of ammonium nitrate left for years to linger on the dockside of Beirut's port. Sawan suspended the investigation into Lebanon's worst peacetime disaster in mid-December after the former ministers he charged over the explosion filed a complaint. Algeria's President Tebboune called for the dissolution of the parliament and early legislative elections as the North African nation struggles with health, political and economic crises. In an address to the nation, Tebboune said they will also carry out a government reshuffle and they issued a pardon for dozens of jailed activists. The government has struggled to stem renewed Iraq protests. Tebboune, who has previously expressed dissatisfaction with the cabinet of Prime Minister Girard, said the government reshuffle would take place within 48 hours at most. Algeria's government is facing multiple challenges as the coronavirus pandemic adds to the woes of oil-dependent economy. The United Nations envoy to Yemen said Thursday that a Houthi rebel assault on the Yemeni government's last northern stronghold must stop, warning of a political humanitarian disaster. Envoy Martin Griffiths told the United Nations Security Council by video conference on the attack on the city of Marib that it puts millions of civilians at risk, especially with the fighting reaching camps for internally displaced persons. Griffiths added that the quest for the territorial gain by force threatens the prospects of the peace process. The Iran-backed Houthis this month resumed their offensive to seize oil-rich Marib, some 120 kilometers east of the rebel-held capital Sana'a. Griff said that to seize this chance to revitalize the political process, the parties should immediately agree to a nationwide ceasefire that holds all forms of fighting.
Right, welcome back, and we're speaking about the latest development, and we have with us over the phone to highlight the Asian Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you so much. And we're speaking about the latest developments in Libya and the scene in Libya, particularly in light of the Libyan new elections, new presidential council and new government, and in light of the recent visits of the new Libyan Prime Minister to Egypt. First, let me see you reading to the scene in Libya just after the election of a new presidential council.
It's quite obvious when we study or look to the circles of Egypt's foreign relations. We start immediately by the most important circle, which is the neighborhood. It means it is Libya, it is Palestine, it is Sudan. Then we go to the Arab circle, we go to the African, to the Islamic, to the Euro-Mediterranean. But I want to stress that Libya comes in the first circle of our foreign relations interest. So Libya is a red tape to us. We want to make sure that Libya is going quite well. We have a huge community of Egyptians living there and helping the country for its development and its security. We want to maintain this going in the safest way. Always I say, if you drive your car along the desert sea between the desert road between Cairo and Alexandria, you will meet hundreds of cars with the Libyan numbers or Egyptian numbers going between Alexandria and Libya. So it is for us almost one country. We have a lot of families coming from Libya living among us. We have big Egyptian community there. So the interest is between Libya and Egypt is quite wide. It goes also for Sudan and for Palestine. And so it really, I am, as a diplomat and Egyptian, I am highly satisfied with the developments, and I hope it will continue until we restore the Libyan unity under one flag and one government and one president. And I hope and I think that we are going along in this road quite well.
Definitely, this is the Egyptian constant diplomacy towards its brotherly countries, particularly the Arab and the African. But when I'm speaking about the situation, the scene, the whole scene in Libya, before the election of this new government and now after the election of this new council and government.
Yes, Libya was in a terrible situation, and the most bad threat to any country when it is divided under different tribes. The most dangerous is each tribe goes to one foreign country to support it. So you have seen in Libya many foreign forces and even terrorists there, 20,000 they say. So that was a horrible situation. Nobody can live like that. So thanks to God, thanks to the efforts flowed by Egypt and some Arab countries also, and some friendly countries in Europe, that we convinced the Libyan to come and to convene in Egypt in order to see that everybody will come winning from this process, because the country must be over any tribe interest. And I congratulate our brothers in Libya that they start the right efforts and the right direction. Hope that this will continue. Hope that this will end with the unity in Libya and to see much more positive developments.
In Libya, the situation was also very much described as chaotic because of the different tools or different elements who are playing in the scene, the Libyan scene. How do you view the next stage? What should or what do we expect from this upcoming government? How can Egypt further help? We know that Egypt has been helping Libya to restore its security and stability all the time. How does Egypt or what should Egypt be helping Libya in this upcoming phase?
I think that we should, and we are, as a matter of fact, helping Libya by giving our experience, exchange our views, and to tell them what to do, because Egypt is a huge old country with a lot of experience. Our presence in the international field and the regional one is very important. Our relations is very wide. Cairo is the largest city or capital in the world hosting foreign missions. This means that our relations with the whole world is almost perfect. And we are telling Libya by exchanging information about the threats against the Libyan security by those who are thinking about the old empire of Turkey or what else. And we are coordinating here between Egypt and Libya, between Egypt, Libya and the EU, European Union, even the NATO. We succeeded to attract the NATO to stop this threat and to give direct messages to Turkey and all others who are thinking that they can penetrate the Libyan security or to take part of its wealth. I'm talking here about oil and gas and all this wealth. It must be only for the Libyan people and the Libyan country.
Mm-hmm. Just few or just very few minutes or an hour, the President Sisi has stressed or has made an important meeting via video conference with the African chiefs of the constitutional courts. And the President stressed that the Constitution shall always be subject to review and upgrade in line with the challenges through a rapidly developing world. How does those words reflect on the scene in Libya, in Egypt, and of course in Africa at large?
It is the first step for stability, because as we say in the law, that the constitution anywhere in any country is the father of all the laws. So if you agree about the constitution, then you can draft other laws according to what we agreed as a country in the constitution. So any law must abide to the constitution, which is drafted by the Libyans themselves or in anywhere in Africa. And I think Egypt is doing a good role also with Africa. We had the presidency of the African Union in 2019. We continue to help the African leaderships in order to continue in this way of the African unity, to stop civil wars in African countries, and to help Africa for its development and its security. We succeeded also to attract the EU, the European Union, China, Japan, in order to come to help us to invest in Africa with the Egyptian experience, which is very accepted phase all over the whole continent. We establish a free trade area, a large free trade area. It is the largest in the world with 1,200 million inhabitants. And this will be a source of attraction by itself for investment, whether coming from governments or coming from private sector.
Finally here, if I may ask you, why is Egypt an acceptable mediator, supporter, particularly to the Libyan different parties?
It is an interesting story. As you will know, I served in Africa several times, and I ask you this same question to Africans. Why they are accepting Egypt? They answer you with several answers. First, because you are white, and we are proud that there are white Africans. Why? Because you are black. That there is a black civilization in Egypt with the Nubian civilization. Tutankhamun was Nubian and black. Because we are Muslims and Al-Azhar al-Sharif is well presented in Africa. Al-Azhar is hosting tens of thousands of African students. I met a vice prime minister in some African countries, graduated from Al-Azhar. I met 60 high officials from the police forces in one country, trained in Egypt. Most, I am still lecturing at the Nasser Academy, where I meet 30 different high officials from the armies in Africa. Also one reason, because we are Christian and we have the Eastern Church, the Orthodox Church, which is the leading church of many churches in Africa. Even in Ethiopia, the church there is Orthodox like ours. Many reasons for Egypt being acceptable. Talking about the Nasser time and Egypt helping all the African countries in order to take their independence. And Boutros Ghali, the late Boutros Ghali, when I talk to him, he knows every name of every big family in any African country. So we are there and we know them, they know us, and we are proud of that.
Right. Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, and for your input. And before we continue on with our discussion, let's have this quick report, and we'll come back for more discussion.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met with visiting Libyan's interim Prime Minister Abdel Hamid Dbeibah in Cairo on Thursday. During the meeting, President el-Sisi expressed Egypt's keenness on completing mechanisms for governing the country and maintaining Libya's peace and stability. Presidential spokesperson Bassem Rodi said that the head of state stressed that the current stage necessitates unified efforts to all Libyan people. President el-Sisi affirmed Egypt's full readiness to provide all its expertise and experience in a way that contributes to putting Libya on the right track and preparing the country to move towards horizons of construction, development and stability. For his part, Dbeibah expressed his appreciation to Egypt for settling the Libyan crisis over the past period, which helped in ending division among various parties. He hailed Egypt's support to Libya's institutions in fighting terrorism. The meeting tackled the roadmap for Libya in the transitional period as well as prospects of cooperation and coordination between Egypt and Libya during this critical stage. It also centered on horizons of bilateral economic cooperation and capacity building for Libyans in different fields. On the ground, a number of Libyan members of parliament held on Monday a preliminary session to prepare for the general session to approve the Presidential Council and the new National Unity Government.
Right, welcome back, and continuing on with our discussion, we have with us over the phone Engineer Hassan Shaban, political analyst. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you.
Thank you so much, sir. And let me here ask you, I know that you have been to Libya, you've been in contact with lots of important Libyan figures at sometimes. We're speaking here about a new government, a new presidential council in Libya. How do you see these developments? How do you see where Libya is heading to, and how important is that for the Libyan people?
What's happening in Libya nowadays was expected like 2 weeks ago, since the new American administration took over, actually. And the decision was made, actually, to stop the fight in Libya and restore peace and order. Choosing also Mr. Abdel Hamid Dbeibah as a prime minister, whom is an engineer, he's a civil engineer actually, will give momentum to the new government. I think he's very busy right now forming the new government. I think all the fractions will be represented in the new government. You see, the issue in Libya is you have a lot of tribes, you have a lot of groups, political, religious, and so forth, are there, and you want to keep everybody happy and give them a chance to contribute in the rebuild of the Libyan future. So, Prime Minister Abdel Hamid Dbeibah, I think, he's got the plate full right now, and within a week's time, I think he will be able to come up with the names of the new cabinet. Actually, it is the task we all waited for so long to see, but I'm happy that we have reached finally a happy ending. I think this will be a beginning of a new era in Libya. From now till December, coming December 24th, where the new elections, the coming elections will be held, I think we will see a lot of momentum, maybe similar to what happened in Egypt in the last few years, to push Libya back in front of all the developing countries in Africa.
Let me hear, I just want to say something that even before a new U.S. Administration, there were a kind of agreement that Siraj would call for a new election and would end his presidential term because of all the negative developments that went on in Libya during that period of time. Now, we're speaking about different or a new presidential council and new government, and hopefully Mr. Dbeibeh would be able to form a much anticipated and aspired for Libyan government to fulfill the aspiration of the Libyan people. But if I may ask you here, what do Libyans need? What are the challenges that are facing Libyans in this upcoming phase, and what does a new government and presidential council need to address as priorities for Libya?
The first priority is security and peace. The government will have to face the task of resolving all the mercenaries, the militias that were actually formed in Libya in the last 10 years. This is a major task in order to restore peace and order. Militias will have to surrender their weapons to the central government, and I think part of the militias will probably join the Libyan army. The Libyan government will have a plan actually to gradually resolve this issue of the militias. Also, the presence of foreign troops in Libya will have to be resolved. In the presence of the former government, Libya actually signed certain agreements with countries like Turkey. I think Prime Minister Abdelhamid Dbeibeh have the experience and the wisdom to be able to, be able to face the issue of the presence of foreign troops on the Libyan soil. I think he's got the experience and the wisdom as well to be able to maybe play a positive role to improve relations between Turkey and Egypt. If the Turkish intentions were positive, similar to the positive intentions that we have in Egypt, for the good of Libya, if everybody is sincere about his feelings toward Libya. Also, there is a big number of African mercenaries actually in Libya. Part of these mercenaries wanted to migrate to Europe, and I think the illegal migration to Europe have stopped. So Libya is stuck with a huge number of African nationals who actually should go back to their own countries. So I think the African organization will also have a role to play in this respect.
As for the second priority, you spoke about the existence of foreign forces. Then actually we're not speaking about the existence or the presence of foreign forces on the Libyan territories or on the Libyan soil. We're speaking about the existence of foreign entities represented in organizations, represented in financial groups or financial institutions that really exist and in control of the economic situation in Libya. And definitely we are aware of the entities we're speaking about. How do you think the Libyan government should be dealing with recontrolling its assets and its elements, particularly the economic one, in parallel with restoring security at the same time? And the Libyan interference in the Egyptian Turkish relations is definitely remain to be seen by the Turkish will. However, how do you think the Libyan should be restoring the economic elements?
You see, in spite of the fact that Libya had, something very close to a civil war during the last 10 years, but the majority of this period, Libya did not really stop producing oil. And the central bank is still there. And I think in parallel to the ambitious plans to restore peace and security, I definitely think that the Central Bank of Libya, with the budget minister, will probably be able to regain control of the situation, financial situation in Libya, because the whole thing went to shambles over the last 10 years. So you need to reconsider the justice in allocating budgets for the different areas in Libya, like Benghazi should have a budget, Tripoli should have a budget, the South Sabha will have a budget. So actually we will have to be fair to Libya is a large country. You have to consider Libya is a very large country, and I think the wealth of Libya is enough to cover the whole of Libya.
No, I was speaking about the control of the foreign entity existing in Libya of some of the economic elements in Libya, and that goes through some of the foreign organizations that exist in Libya and were allied or allies to certain entities in Libya. How should the new Libyan government be dealing with those organizations who are in control of important elements such as the economic ones?
I think gradually, once the government is formed, these organizations will shrink automatically, because the only legitimate authority in Libya will be the central bank as well as the government. So having foreign entities over the Libyan soil will not be acceptable. I mean, Libya is a very rich country, and the Libyan people will not really appreciate very much having foreign entities controlling their wealth. So I think within a year's time, things will go back to normal. You have to consider that the Libyan currency fell to shambles. Actually, it's actually a very weak currency right now in comparison with the dollar and other foreign currencies. So definitely there will be a plan to restore the strength of the reserve of the Libyan treasury. Actually.
Yes, yes. Of course, we all hope the best for the Libyan people and for the end of all their sufferings during the past years. Let me here thank you, Engineer Hassan Shaaban, political analyst, for your input here and for being with us over the phone. Remains to be seen the developments or the new Libyan government, and with all the support of Egypt, and which the President has expressed on. We'll be updating you on the developments in Libya and in many of the Arab worlds. Until next Saturday, it's goodbye.